Okay, about 5 years ago, we put a pond in, which has been going really well, and the fish are all healthy. We decided to upgrade the filter to something a bit more substantial and a little bit bigger. So what we did is we were just going to go out and buy one, like from the shop, which is what we've already got at the moment. And going on YouTube, I saw, just put in like pond filter to see what came up. I mean, I saw that people built their own, so I thought I'll have a go at that. The main reasons that I decided to build my own is I think they're a little bit better because you can make them a lot bigger, so you get more surface area, and also they're a lot cheaper. The one that I've built cost about £80 for the parts, and to buy one for a similar size, you're talking £400 or £500. So these are the bits that have been used. We've got some plumbing parts, some biofilter that I made myself, some rigid mesh, obviously the container, some filter sponges, and I'll go through and show you what I did. I'm not claiming that the design that I did do a plan, but this design's not my own. It's, I've watched other people's YouTube videos and come up with something, my version, but it's based on a system that a lot of people use and seems to work. It's very scalable, so you can make it a lot bigger than what I've done or a lot smaller, depending on what size your pond is and your stock levels and things like that. And I wanted to see if I could do it as well, and it was pretty easy, to be honest, so I'd recommend that you do it. Another reason that I wanted to make a video and do a UK version is there seems to be a lot of people from other countries that have made their own filters and put them on YouTube. And one of the reasons I wanted to do a UK version is where you get all the parts from, because a lot of people, a lot of the Americans that make them get the parts from Home Depot, and obviously in England we don't have that. So basically I started out with this container, which I actually got from a local supermarket. I think I got this one from Morrison's, but all supermarkets sell them: Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, and you can get them in like places like Wilkinson's. I think I got this half price. It only costs me £4, and this one's 80 litres, which is a pretty big container. Because you've got to think about, when this fills up with water from the pond, it's going to take 80 litres out of your pond. So every time you change the water, you're going to have to put another 80 litres in your pond. But our pond's a decent size. If you had quite a small pond, you probably want to try a smaller filter. And also the weight of it as well. So obviously 80 litres of water, when it's full, it's going to weigh 80 kilos, which is like the same as a person. So you need to have this somewhere secure on something nice and solid. And obviously because it works with gravity, so it's gravity, it fills up and then goes into the pond through a hose. You need to have it higher than the pond, so it needs to be nice and stable on something secure. If you want something that's not higher than the pond, you need to look at a pressure filter, which you can buy. I don't think you'll be able to build a pressure filter very easily, because you have to have like a completely airtight container, which you probably could do, but I think it'd be a bit more involved, which is a bit beyond me. So basically, this is the container that I picked. It was quite cheap. So to start with, I had to drill some holes. If you are going to drill holes in plastic, just drill nice and slowly so you don't split the plastic. Just take your time, because obviously if you split the container, you need to buy another one basically. So basically there's sort of three main holes that I had to drill. So this is going to be the inlet, which is, I guess, not even an inch. The outlet, which goes to the pond, which is quite a bit bigger than the inlet, so the container doesn't just fill up and overflow. You need to have your outlet bigger than your inlet. And I've obviously put a drain in the bottom as well, so you can backflush the filter, so it's self-cleaning as well, which I've noticed that a lot of filters I've seen on YouTube don't include, which is something I've included, which I'll talk about that a little bit later. So to go through the holes, you need these things, which I've looked on other people's YouTube videos, and some people call them bulkheads. In England they seem to be called tank connectors, and it's basically they just go through and bolt on from each side and have a rubber washer to make them watertight. So basically I'll fit these now, there's no point in me showing you because it takes a while, and then we'll take it from there. So I've fitted the tank connectors now, so I've got the inlet, so basically water comes in through there. Then we've got the outlet, which again is nice and big to let the water out, and then a drained one down at the bottom. So basically where I got most of the parts from, I got a lot of the parts from eBay. The only problem with getting things from eBay is because you need to make sure all the parts connect together. So you don't want to buy something and then it arrives and it's a little bit too big and it doesn't fit properly into another piece. So I got some of the parts from eBay. I got the bulkheads from eBay because they were cheaper basically. And then the internal plumbing parts, which I'll show you in a little bit. I actually went to a local pond fish supply shop, which most sort of towns and cities have. And the good thing with that is you can actually take your bulkheads down with you, and then you can go down there and they have loads of plumbing parts, and you can buy them as individual pieces, which is cheaper because sometimes you have to buy them in like packs of 3 and things like that from DIY stores like at B&Q. I wouldn't get anything from there because you have to buy in like packs of 3 and you don't need 3 if you only need 1. Yeah, so what I'd recommend is you take your sort of bulkheads, your tank connectors, which the pond places do actually sell. So if we're going to make one of these again, because I started and buying bits from eBay, I think I'll just go down to a pond supply shop and just buy everything from there. And when you can ask them questions, you can literally say, you know, I've got this part and this part, I need something that'll connect them together, and they'll just show you what you need. And you can buy all the parts, check the fit, and buy them as individual pieces. Obviously you don't have to pay for shipping as well, because these sort of pieces are quite, even though they don't weigh a lot, they're quite physically big, so they have to go as a parcel, so they cost a bit to sort of ship, and even if they say free P&P, you're sort of still paying for it in the price. So basically with your tank connectors, there's a rubber washer, so make sure your rubber washer's on the inside, fasten them nice and tight so they're airtight. What I did is when I drilled the holes, I actually drilled them a little bit smaller than they needed to be, and then I filed them gradually with a file so I could get them, so I could work at them to get the hole just a little tiny bit bigger than it needs to be. So these tank connectors are threaded, so they actually screw through the plastic, if that makes sense, so that it's quite a tight fit. And these screw on the back with all 3. And obviously that will need quite a big drill bit, and the biggest one I had was quite a bit small, so I had to do quite a bit of filing. Again, if you are going to file, or even when you've cut, even if you just do cut with a drill, you'll need to smooth out the inside of the hole. So when you file, again, just be careful because it's quite a flexible tub. Just make sure you don't split the plastic. So basically, how it's going to work is the water is going to come in through from the pump, which is in the pond. It'll pass through an inline UV filter, which I don't have with me to show you at the moment. That's on the way through the post as well. I actually bought that on eBay. It was quite a bit cheaper than the ones in the shops. You can spend a lot of money on UV filters, depending on how powerful they are. And obviously, the bigger your pond is, the more powerful UV you need. What the UV filter does is one of the problems that the reason your pond goes green is because of algae. And the problem is with algae is a filter can't trap algae, because algae organisms are a single cell organism, which means they're very small, so they'll pass through any sort of filter media. So what the UV does is it kills the algae, and when it gets killed it clumps together, so your UV filter makes the algae bigger essentially, so your filter can grab it and it also kills it. I've seen people with how they have their filter set up is they have the UV filter after this filter, so they'd have the water going from the pump through a hose straight into this filter and then out of there essentially, then through a UV filter into the pond, and that seems a bit silly to me. It makes more sense to have a UV filter before this filter so it kills the algae, and then this filter will grab it. So essentially the way this setup will work is there's a pump that we've already got in the pond which we use for the old system, which is big enough to handle this. So there'll be an inline UV filter so it'll go from the pond pump to an inline UV filter, which will kill the algae, clump it together, but it'll then come in through here, and obviously it'll trap the algae and all the other muck from the pond, and then take it out. So you need to make sure, if you are going to use this system, you need to make sure you get an inline UV filter that keeps the pressure, so it'll, after the UV filter, sorry, it'll still have enough pressure to get up to this. So basically what's going to happen is, like I said, water will come from the pond through a UV filter. The reason I can't film this today outside is because it's raining, basically, so I'm having to do it inside. So you'll have to visualise what it's going to be like. So water's going to come from the pond, from the pump, through a hose into the UV filter, out of the UV filter, in through here, and it's going to come inside. It's going to come to the centre, it's going to go down, and it's going to tee off. Obviously you've probably seen this sort of thing on YouTube before, and it'll tee off to each side of the elbow, which helps the water spiral, which apparently helps the muck settle to the bottom. And obviously this filters upwards, it filters against gravity, it just helps it. So basically what I'll do now is I'll put the internal plumbing together. Again, all the internal plumbing I actually got from our local pond supply store, so it's quite, I was able to test that it all fitted properly inside. So I'll do that now. Okay, so we've got the internal plumbing done now. So basically water comes in through there, comes down, elbows down to the bottom and tees off. And at the end of each tee is an elbow, which will sort of help the water spin around, which apparently helps the muck stick to the bottom. I've raised the bottom of this off the bottom of the filter to give it some room. Obviously these just dry fit at the moment, so what I did is I just used a small piece of the same pipe and drilled a hole in and cable tied that, so it just helps it sit on the bottom. So if there's any crap on the bottom, it'll just so it won't clog the outlets of the internal plumbing. So it's about, I don't know, 2 inches off the bottom. So that's the internal plumbing. Obviously I'll got some PVC glue to stick all this together, so when it gets used properly. So basically what I wanted to do is I wanted a solid base to put the filter pads on. So what I did is I got this from eBay. It's just like some rigid mesh. It's about, I don't know, half an inch to a centimetre thick, roughly. And then basically these just sort of, because obviously I'm going to glue all the pipe work, I need to put a notch in, so these will sit down. I wouldn't try cutting these with a saw, because you'd be there forever and a day, because the top of the saw will get stuck. So what I used is just, I used some garden scissors and a bit of effort, and just trimmed them. So again, I wanted to put some spacers on the bottom. So what I came up with is this. So this is a piece of rigid mesh. Again, I cut some pieces of the same pipe, all the same length, just drilled a hole and cable tied through to the other side and cut off the excess. It's quite easy to do. Obviously, it's they're secure enough. They're not going to go anywhere. And basically, this just sits down on top and forms a solid base. So if I tip it up gently, you can see from the side that there's a good gap for any muck, and obviously the top of the rigid mesh needs to be higher than the drain valve. I don't know if you can see that through the plastic. And then basically now what I need to do is I need to build up the foam which I bought. I bought these off eBay. So these are your sort of foam pads. I've seen people on YouTube using like scourer pads, but to fill us up with scourer pads, it'll probably just be the same price to use these. So these come in sort of 3 gradients. You have your rough ones, which are sort of quite big. You can see the light through there. And you've got medium ones and you've got fine ones. Obviously it filters upwards, so you need your thick one, your thicker ones, your ones with bigger holes in first. So what I did is I actually bought 2 sets of these, so I've got two of every varying hole size, if that makes sense. To buy these are quite expensive to buy. The place that I bought the internal plumbing, the pond supply store. Obviously, you buy them bigger and you cut them down to size. I think it was about £30 for a set of 3 of these. I think I got some on eBay for £10. They come in different colours, and each colour represents like a different how big it is. So the black is the ones with the biggest holes in. So that's first. That sort of grabs the biggest pieces of dirt. And then it's a bit confusing because I bought 2 different sets. The white and this blue are actually the same. These are medium, so they sort of grab the next size particles of dirt. And then finally the top 2 are the fine, which get the sort of the really small bits. So what I did is just show you one of these to start with. So I cut them to size, and don't cut them all the same size because the tub actually gets bigger the further up you come. It's tapered, so be careful. So basically I cut these to size, and I cut a slit in, so they just push down. I try and do this with one hand's a bit difficult. So obviously they do fit. And you can push them all down, get the general idea. So you want a nice tight fit. And what I'll do is the slits, I'll stagger those, so the slit will be there and that one, and the one above the slit will be there. So starting from the bottom, I build these up, and then eventually you should get a good 6 inches of filter pads, and then we'll take it from there. Just before I forget, I added an air stone to the bottom of the filter, which is going to obviously hooked up to an air pump through a tube which goes through a hole in the side. Obviously goes down, so when this is full of water and the air pump's on water, air bubbles will bubble up through the filter, which will help beneficial bacteria grow. I've just cable tied this to the bottom pipe, so it's sort of just off, comes off the bottom, just set off the bottom, just a couple of cable ties. And obviously the tube I'll just push to the side and with the filter pads. So I've got all the filter pads in now, so if you look from the side you can see how it works. So you can see on the bottom the water comes in, got the air stone, so water, air bubbles when it's full of water, obviously a little bit bubbling up. So you've got the various layers, you've got your coarse layer, your medium layer and your fine layer of sponges. They have like a don't know what shape you call it, look like mountains, so you have to have those facing down so they face the water coming towards them. So on the top of the filter looks like this, so you need to make sure that all your try and get rid of as many gaps around the edge as you can, so try and cut your filter sponges a little bit bigger than they need to be so you can really sort of force them in. And again, the slits, make sure you have those alternatives, so the layer underneath the slit will be there, again to try and stop any water missing the sponges. And on top of that, just have another rigid piece of mesh, just try and keep it all even. And on top of that now, so obviously we've still got a bit of a gap to go before it reach the outlet. So biological filtration now, so this is your mechanical filtration. And before that you have your UV filtration. So there's 3 main parts to any filter. So there's UV, mechanical and biological filtration. You need all 3 parts really to have a healthy pond. So the UV, you can't really build a UV filter yourself, so you need to buy one of those, an inline one. So that's obviously outside of this, but will still be included. It's like the UV will be between this and the pump. And then you've got your mechanical, which is like the sort of the sponge which actually gets rid of the bits. Then you need somewhere for beneficial bacteria to grow, and that involves anything with a large surface area. You will probably still get good bacteria growing in the sponges, but just to help it even more, you can use different things, like people use like lava rock, any sort of porous stone. There's anything with a big surface area for the bacteria to grow, and obviously the air bubbling up will help that as well. So you can buy these things called bio balls, which I've got a few of here, which are just sort of pieces of plastic with a massive surface area, look like balls with just kind of made of straws. So you just basically chuck those there, and then bacteria grows there because they've got a big surface area. I actually tried making my own just with some straws, which are cut straws down and put an elastic band round. If you're going to do this, just make sure you don't do the elastic band too tight because it'll squash all the straws. So if you look down there, you have an absolutely massive surface area. So basically I'm just going to put all these on top. So then on top now, we've got all our biological media. So I've just used a mixture of the straws that I made myself, which I saw somebody make on YouTube. Just seems to make sense. Cheap, very easy to make. Absolutely massive surface area, all the internal. And the bio board, just an even layer on the top. And then to stop everything floating about, because I think the straws might float about. Just again, another piece of the rigid mesh. And that's pretty much it for the inside. I mean, on top of that, obviously, just put your lid on, which snaps down, and it's all inside. You can kind of see from the outside the different layers. So obviously now we're going to do the backflush drain. So for the backflush drain, I bought this. This is way too big than what I need. I bought this off eBay. Again, you know, this is an advantage of going into a shop and feeling what something and seeing what something's actually like. It'll do the job, but it's just too bigger than you need. It's quite heavy as well. So basically, this will just these sort of all connect together. So it'll come off the end, and then so it'll sit like that basically, and then oops, you get the idea. And then I'll have another piece there, and then I can't really do it because it needs to elbow down underneath. So what'll happen is when your filter gets dirty, obviously cleaning this out will be quite a pain. So because it's got a backflush, all you need to do to clean this filter is pop a lid off, turn your pump off, turn your UV filter off so UV filter don't get too hot because it won't have any water flowing through it. Open the valve, that's actually open at the moment. Let all the water drain out. Use that to water your garden because it's one of the best things for plants. And then basically to clean the filter, because the filter filters this way, the best way to clean it is don't use sort of tap water, don't use your hose pipes, that'll kill any beneficial bacteria that's in there. So basically to clean this, what you'll do is just get wait till it empties. As I said, use that water on your garden, it's really good for your garden. And just get a bucket of pond water, obviously make sure you haven't got any fish by mistake, and just basically pour that on top, and that'll go down, and the muck that's caught on the bottom side of the filters will get pushed down, and will sort of go out the drain. And again, you can use that to water your garden, and just pour a good couple of buckets through it until the water coming out the bottom's clear. Obviously, depending on what time of year it is, you'll have to do that more frequently in summer because the fish are more active, they're eating more, pooing more, so there's more of that to deal with, and also the algae, there's more algae to deal with because of the sun. And in winter, I don't think you'd have to clean this out very often, and that's basically it. Like I said, it cost about £80 all in to build. That's not including the UV filter. I think that cost about £40 on its own. So you're talking all in for everything about £120. But like I said, if you're going to go and buy something of this sort of size from a pond supply place with a UV filter, you'd be spending a lot more money than that. And obviously it was quite good fun to build if you like that kind of thing, and I guess you do if you're watching this video, if you're thinking about building your own. Any comments, I welcome them. Any questions? I think that's about it. All the best, cheers, bye bye.